I don't understand how it cannot be seen for exactly what it is, which is a political effort aimed at unseating the mayor. And why is that important? The mayor didn't ask me to say this. In fact, he didn't ask me to say anything. It's important because for the same reason the criminal case is important. You have got to be able to rely upon your government, the city council, to do the right thing, to act with integrity, to be fair, and not to engage in a political witch hunt against somebody they want to get rid of so they can run for mayor themselves. And that's really what this is about. If you know how this all works, you know, city council runs at the same time as the mayor. So none of them can run for mayor unless they get him out in advance so there can be a special election, because they'd have to give up their seat if they waited till the regular election. So that's really what that's all about, at least from their end. The governor's concern is, how does all this look for the state of Michigan? You know, she wants to have business come here. She's done some things in terms of, you know, the theater industry to try to get more movies made in Michigan. She's working on trying to get Michigan to be a more friendly place for business. And her concern is that with all of this in the newspapers, that business is going to shy away from the state of Michigan. And I really understand that that would be her concern. It is not a basis for her to hold a forfeiture proceeding against the mayor. The only basis is the statute that says that the governor can remove a public official for certain things. Well, the problem with that statute is it doesn't say what those certain things are, unless there's only one, and it's drunkenness. And that would make sense, because that's not something for which you might be prosecuted criminally. But you know, if you were laying in the gutter drunk every day, obviously somebody would have to come and remove you from the office so that the business of the city could go on. When you're talking about a term as amorphous and vague as official misconduct, what is that? The mayor, under the charter, has to appoint a corporation counsel who has to settle cases. I don't recall a single time the mayor, in the 4 years I was up there, ever came to the table to talk about settling a case. He doesn't get involved in that. The corporation counsel recommends settlement of the cases. And in this case, the corporation counsel did so without ever talking to the mayor. So how is it that the governor can get to official misconduct on the part of the mayor? What, because he wasn't in the corporation counsel's head and told him what to do every minute of the day? That's why you appoint him. There are 2,500 cases a year filed against this city, minimum. The mayor can't be involved in all of those cases. That's why you have a law department. So none of this makes any sense. It is a political process aimed at somebody who, for whatever reason, they've decided should not be the mayor anymore. The way that this entire process has been handled from the outset, from the time that the first allegations were made about there being a party and everything that flowed from that, has been not just wrong, but unconstitutional. And the reason for that, the reason that I'm saying that is because as a citizen, all of us have to be able to depend upon the integrity of the justice system. And the reason we have a constitution is because it sets certain rights out for people who are accused of crime. And the reason for that is to prevent overzealous prosecutors from deciding they don't like you, so they're going to charge you with something. Or a certain category of people, maybe Arab Americans since 9/11, maybe African Americans for just driving their car down the street, maybe, anybody else, any other category of people, may be charged differently than everyone else for reasons that are improper. And when you look at everything that has occurred here from the very beginning, almost every one of these actions taken by a governmental authority against the mayor has been fraught with all kinds of unconstitutional actions on the part of that governmental agency. People make all kinds of wild allegations in cases, usually employment cases, particularly if they're like sexual harassment or, racial or, ethnic harassment. People say all kinds of things. They may or may not be true, but they say them. When you look at settling those cases, you always look at what all the witnesses are saying. You don't decide it's true. You just, as the lawyer, when you're going to recommend settlement, you say, well, this is what he's going to say, and this is going to get out into the public arena. Do we want this said into the public arena? Regardless of whether it's true or not, you have to take into account everything that's happening when you make a decision to settle or recommend settlement or not. So it doesn't mean because there's a settlement that it was an improper motive, particularly after a verdict which found that we owed the guy all this money. Okay. Now you have, while the criminal case is proceeding, something they've never done before, by the way. In fact, there's a policy over in the prosecutor's office not to prosecute perjury coming out of a civil case. We have a letter signed by the prosecutor herself saying that she doesn't do that. But contrary to what she doesn't do, she's now doing it, prosecuting somebody for allegations that were in a civil case. Then you have the city council, a political body. That's what they are. They're elected. And they decide that they're going to forfeit the office. Well, the first thing they do is, right after the jury verdict, they're in the newspapers saying, settle it right now, give them everything, right? Okay, so as time goes on, the mayor's talking about maybe we're going to appeal, we want to appeal, we have the right to appeal, whatever. You always say that. Any lawyer who's practiced law for longer than a year will tell you that in every case where you lose a big jury verdict, you always file the notice of appeal to protect your client, and also because it might give you a way to bargain them down on the other side. Maybe they got $6 million, maybe you can bargain down. Well, everybody pretty much knew in this case it wasn't going to be bargained down. It was one of the darkest days of my time here as general counsel to the mayor when they put him, the judge, put him in jail overnight. There was absolutely no basis for it, none. I pulled the bail statute because I thought, okay, maybe they changed it since I looked at it last, but they hadn't. And the reasons you put somebody in jail, the seriousness of the offense they're charged with. Okay, let's see, what are they charging him with? They claim lying about an affair and lying about how firing somebody, settling a case. Not murder, not child molestation, not robbery. Seriousness, no. The protection of the public, from whom? They don't have to protect the public from their mayor. The previous criminal record and dangerousness of the person, neither one. No criminal record, not dangerous. And then the last thing, the only other thing, is a probability or improbability that he'll show up for the court. He shows up for the court 3 times a week. There was no basis for him having been put in jail overnight. And there was less basis for the next judge to which they appealed, him being put in jail overnight, wait until the next morning. The only reason for any of that was for the cameras to be there. It was ridiculous. And had he been almost anyone else, I can't imagine another person, unless it was another political figure, that would have been put in jail over going to Windsor. You don't even think of Windsor as being another country. We go to Windsor for dinner, And I'm sure that that's what was in the mayor's head. He wasn't thinking about that being part of the order. But the assumption that he went over to Windsor because he intended to, violate the court's order and challenge the court's authority is absurd. There was no basis for that assumption to be made by the court. So it was a very, very bad day, because what it said to me is, here we go, the piling on of one after the other of people who, I used to have a lot of respect for, and they're joining this and being a part of it because they want to be on the side that the newspapers are on. And when people say newspapers, folks say, why would the newspapers do this? Because they have a point of view. They're not some, governmental or non-governmental private body that is out there trying to do the right thing. They're trying to sell newspapers. And if they think that you will sell newspapers, they'll say whatever they want to say about you. And that's pretty much what's happened. We have had businessmen come to this office to meet with us, telling us that editors from those newspapers have called them and asked them to call the governor and ask her to remove him. Now, if that's not a lack of journalistic integrity, I don't know what is.